better for the health of the players, which is why the leagues prefer that. And so I just want to say that's it's a problem that you would be. I understand that a lot of players that there's an aspiration and a desire for the synthetic turf, but there's growing evidence, and including lawsuits about the failure of the fields to perform as advertised.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I just want to distinguish between the two discussions. Are we going to, Kylie, are you going to present anything about the financials, or is it going to be about the soccer team?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I'm here to answer questions if folks have them, but there's not.
Good.
Yep.
I just wanted to answer one of those.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and
and
you're
you're
watching
watching
AccessTV.org.
Are you going to present anything about the financials, or is it going to be about the soccer team?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I'm here to answer questions if folks have them, but there's not.
Good.
Yep.
I just wanted to answer one of her concerns. This field is going to have is a non-carcinogenic material we use, which meets the I think there's a City of Hartford requirement. Right. So that is part of this. It's a FIFA 2-star system. It's not your basic turf that we used in the past. So the little balls that run around aren't there anymore. So just to address that one concern you have.
We've also done analysis, financial analysis, that shows that a grass field is actually more expensive. And we've talked to a lot of people about that. And we can compare notes, but we're pretty comfortable that the artificial field will be much more cost effective. And we do understand that it's going to have to be replaced, and that'll be included in the capital budget, but it's still cheaper than a grass field, particularly the amount of use we think this is going to get.
You had said that
but
16, you would be playing 16 days? Is that what you were saying, 16?
No, we're playing more than that. Would be
40 days.
well. There's day before. There's approximately 22 dates initially, just for the soccer.
Okay. So I guess my question is
There
that-
could be other dates in there. We're not exactly sure. How many dates.
Okay. So when is your season?
March to the beginning of October.
And that assumes we make the playoffs.
That's if we make the playoffs.
Okay.
Oh, is this?
Of course.
I don't know if this question is correct, because I wasn't here when it started. Will all the games be played at night?
Sorry?
Will all the games be played at night?
Typically, the games will be played on Saturday nights.
Night.
I looked at the proposal, part of it with the actual renovation of Dillon Stadium, and I am not an engineer, I'm looking at the schematics going, that. But I read it about, they're talking about they want to do it in a sequential way, remove some benches first, some of the grandstands, replace them, then at a later date, replace other ones. What's the grand plan? What are you looking for seating capacity? And on the financials, I read something about you guys, you could put $240,000 towards it, but
Oh, well, you have the wrong group. You have it mixed up with somebody else.
I apologize for that. Okay, but I was wondering, where do we stand, Mr. Gale, maybe you could ask, where do we stand with what's the tax, like for the yard goats? If I go to a game, what's the city adding as a tax that you guys could be doing the same thing, that now you can use as a revenue?
It's a state tax.
It's a state tax, ticket tax.
There's a state ticket tax.
Right, but I thought there was a little bit of an issue there in the city. They were did the state rescind that or something, or are they going to, or they were trying to?
That conversation applies strictly to the yard goats right now.
Yeah.
I don't really know anything about the proposal here. There is a state admissions tax, and the state has given the city the ability to add to it. But with respect to the yard goats, I think in their contract, there may be some issues as to whether we can do that. So that's totally a side issue.
Are you guys
with
looking
respect
to
to
utilize that
this
as a
group-
revenue generator, or?
Well, we're generating revenues from a variety of different sources. I mean, there will be sales tax on concessions and souvenirs and jerseys. There is a ticket tax for the state, John mentioned. We will be employing people in the organization, so there'll be payroll taxes. There'll be people parking around the city, so there'll be parking taxes on those. We've actually prepared a budget showing that what we would generate. It's been submitted to the city as part of our proposal.
What do you reasonably anticipate would be the crowd sizes? What are you guys anticipating?
I think we start off with 4,800. A little less than that, I think, out of the gate. The capacity of the stadium will be 6,500 as planned now. We'll see. A little higher?
Yeah. Okay. Capacity is around 7,000. We're hoping, well, based on our studies and what the league averages are, we're just somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 per game.
Are you planning, is there a city, anyone planning on putting any skybox in there for extra revenue like that? Did you join any corporate support or anything?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Right.
We're still in the preliminary planning stages, and that's all got to be worked out. It's a good question, but we don't know at this time, exact configuration of the stadium.
What's the time frame from when you get the go from everybody to when it opens? And then, am I also hearing that some things will be done and it'll be spread out over a period of, in other words, perhaps some seating will be in the beginning and then you're going to enlarge the seating later?
We hope.
Okay, so what's the time frame in general?
So the time frame right now is we want to start playing in March 2019. So we've got till then to get this done. And we're working with CRDA and the city diligently to achieve that goal. So that's the time frame as far as getting started. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
I can give you more.
Well, I mean, so you start playing next March with 2,000 seats and then hopefully,
No, we'll have the capacity of approximately 7,000 seats. The USL is going to require at some point that all stadiums for their teams have a minimum of 10,000 seats. We will be under that to start.
But does the site have the capacity for you to do that at some point?
It does. There's 5,500 seats just in the existing stands alone, just so you know that, in the east stands. The west stands are...
So so in theory, when you open in March, everything should be done?
Yes.
So we're looking all new drainage, even if it's an artificial turf, drainage is a major issue. You're talking about all new water, electrical upgrades, you're gonna have new lighting, I'm assuming, new scoreboard. The building on the north end that works with the lockers, the team lockers, is that gonna be renovated, torn down, and rebuilt? Where are we doing?
We're not sure yet.
All right.
I mean, we're leaning toward renovation, but we don't know. Until we sit with the architects and engineers and we do a complete, feasibility study of the facility, we don't really know, and we gotta make sure it works for the community and works for us.
So do we know at this point or not know that there may or isn't asbestos in those buildings, plus the concession stand building, things of this nature? Do we know where we're at with that, or is we kind of just...
No, an environmental study has to be done.
And that hasn't
I'm not
been
sure
done
if the city, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if the city had done one previously when they had plans for it. That would I'd have to leave to the city. But it can't be left that way. It would be abated properly.
Do we have a question in the back of the room, and then Dave?
Good evening, everybody. Through you, Chair, are you looking at an agreement? I think most of us would like to see the lease agreement. So have you been presented the agreement? We'd like to see the lease agreement. We'd like to see the community benefits agreement. Do we have that? Is that what or is just a generic presentation tonight?
This is a generic presentation. We haven't been involved in that process of the agreement.
There are no agreements as of yet. We're still in the process of really discussing with folks at HSG and CRDA how this partnership might work.
Right.
And once we have a better idea of what that is and what the numbers are, both for the city and for our partners, then we'll start putting some pens to paper on that. There'll be additional opportunities for public thought and comment, whether that's coming back to PrAC or through the council process.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. Thank you. So there's nothing in writing now. There's no agreements yet. You haven't hammered out anything as far as community benefits. So we're still really not to the licensing phase, which I think most of us are looking at. And we have no idea about when CRDA would start the building, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so we are pretty still far away from things. Okay, thank you.
They are requesting a letter of support from this group on the generic concept.
Well, I think we gotta
move on to the next person, Dave.
Yeah, I got like 3 questions. I don't know if it's for you folks or somebody from the city maybe that can answer. So you said you're gonna be tenants, but who's gonna be the owner, like the full owner of the stadium?
The city.
The city would own it? Do we know what the upkeep per year would be, like just for general
We're
grounds?
working on how this partnership would work out, and that includes who would be responsible for maintenance, but the city is working expeditiously internally on crunching those numbers so that we have a general idea. And, as I said, though, when that math is ready and available, we're more than willing to sit down and share that with everyone, but that, what the city may or may not be responsible for is still sort of in discussion at this stage. That hasn't been finalized.
Okay, and then the other is, are you looking for money from the city or from CRDA through the state? And second part of that is, if you can't get that money from them, are you willing to go forward with this proposal or no? It's only if you can get that money.
I will address I'll pass on to the city perhaps, but the money we understand is coming from the state. It's from existing bonding.
That's correct.
That's available for this. We have to play in a renovated stadium. That place is in desperate need of fixes. It's unusable for all intents and purposes right now. And it's not just a coat of paint. It's some serious issues there.
So what's the cost to the city, or do we have no idea yet?
We don't have any idea. Right now, the plan is as Scott described, with Hartford Sports Group coming in with a contribution and CRDA coming in with a contribution. Whether there's any additional costs to the city, we're still discussing at this point. But the plan at the moment is for the main contribution would be those two groups.
And just to emphasize, we've done our analysis on what the actual revenue streams will be. We've been reasonably conservative about that. I mean, there will be support for whatever's out there from what we're generating.
Denise,
In your prospectus, it says that CRDA and City of Hartford to allocate $10 million to Colt Park improvements and Dillon Stadium renovation, including synthetic turf.
Well, this is beyond just Dillon. There's a whole plan for Colt. So part of that money is going to go for upgrades to Colt Park, from what I
So you
understand.
do have some sort of an idea.
Well, this budget here says also then that you're gonna put in between 7 and 10 million. So I was sort of saying, okay, so the whole thing is $20 million?
We're investing $7 to $10 million to bring the team to Hartford. That's what it's going to cost us to put
So
this whole
it's not
package together.
It's not necessarily the physical facilities.
Right.
CRDA is going to request $10 million. We have a pot of what we call neighborhood funds. We're going to request $10 million of that for the two projects, one project, Dillon and Colt. Excuse me. Using the numbers from the Hartford Sports Group on the taxes they would generate, we conservatively estimate that would justify at least $6.7 million in state funding. And then we just thought it made sense at this point to, along with the renovations to Dillon, to put some money into Colt Park. We were given a copy of the master plan and would like to use some of our funding to make that happen. So we would be looking to the city for direction as to the improvements made in Colt Park, presumably based on the existing master plan that's in place.
We have a question here, Joyce.
Go ahead, Joyce.
So, what I'm interested in is how many jobs you think this might generate for the city, and what kind of agreements are you going to have about hiring residents for these jobs. I think it's very hard to recommend something without, from my perspective, being a over 30-year resident of the city, to recommend
I'm not
that.
sure I understand.
Oh, Surrey's talking back. Sorry about that.
We don't either, Surrey.
But I'm trying to understand how we can recommend something without knowing what the
Right.
benefits are going to be to the city. It seems like there's a lot of things to be worked out. that are really important, I know, to everybody in this room. So how do you recommend something without at least having even a thumbprint, a sketch print of what those things might be?
Well, just the rehabilitation of the whole park is to the benefit of the city. We don't own it. It's a community asset that's going to be brought back online. Dillon has a long history at Cole Park, so that's definitely one of the benefits to the city.
I'm interested in how it benefits the residents and the children of the city. So that's, without understanding what that's going to look like, or even the cost to the city, because we're almost bankrupt, I don't think that we really, I don't know. I feel like there's too many details missing for me to recommend anything really right now, honestly.
The only comment I'll make, ma'am, is that understanding that the children of this city will be able to use that facility in ways that they don't have access to a similar facility in the city now. That by itself is a benefit to the city. I mean, this is part of why I'm involved is, and Brian knows this because I've been involved with this, that there are kids that from the South End that love soccer, and it's a facility near them. And that'll be a real benefit to those kids.
And how about jobs? I didn't hear any response to that question.
I'm sure there'll be jobs. There's going to be, concessionaires. There's going to be other people working at the stadium. We haven't worked out the details on any of that, but there's definitely, places for that.
So we have a gentleman over here. I'm sorry, I don't, I just don't want to
The other thing is,
miss anybody.
I grew up in Hartford. My sisters went to Buckley. We used to play the Thanksgiving Day games there. I went there. Those are the kind of benefits that I think are going to help the city or help the community. Doesn't happen anymore. I went to many games there for different events. So I'm hoping that Dillon can be revived to when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s and went there, and it was a real community asset. It's a community liability now. Let's not fool ourselves. That place is a mess. And if the state and we are willing to come forward and do something like this, I can't see the negatives for the city. It's a benefit all across the board. And on top of it, with more money, this is not a Dillon project. This is a Cole Park project with $10 million. Soon that can be bonded, going to the community there. Yes, we are going to get benefits out of it, but we're also bringing a professional sports team to Hartford, and hopefully we can attract millennials, families, youth. It cuts across all the different ethnic groups in Hartford that play soccer. You have, the Ghanaians, the Jamaicans, the Brazilians, the Portuguese. It just goes on and on. When I was a kid, my father was one of the people who brought soccer to Hartford. He was with the Italian American Stars, and I was in that stadium in 1967 when we won the national championship. Hartford won the National Soccer Championship in 1967. I don't know how many of you know that. And I get emotional about it. Those were great days. And it was all ethnic clubs. You had the Italians and the Ukrainians and the Jamaicans and the Portuguese and Polish teams. And it was a great time. And when I drive by there, it makes me cry now to see what that place looks like.
A couple of things I want to say. I play softball there every Sunday. We've been doing it for 10 years now, almost 10 years, our 10-year anniversary there. And I know for a fact, the Cole Park itself is in desperate need of a facelift. I see it. My family's there. We probably bring about 1,000 people there every Sunday. We got over 450 players there. And this would be tremendous. This would help us drastically every Sunday. Not only the fields would be better, just to keep up with them on Sundays every time it rains. We got to have a committee of like 30, 40 guys over there just to help out the city, to help keep the parks clean so we could play. A facelift would probably help out with those couple things. I also have a young boy that plays football, and he played against Buckley, and he plays in Dillon Stadium. And I told him I was coming over here to hear the proposal and stuff like that. And a couple things he mentioned to me, Dad, if they do something in Dillon Stadium, it would be fantastic. I said, why you say that? He said, because every time I play there, it's like mud. Every time we leave out of there, my helmet is all full of mud and dirt. And he likes the game, but he just doesn't like the field itself the way it is right now. Like, then one side works and the other side doesn't work. So I'm all for it.
I have a comment too on Friends of Colt Park, and to hear that monies are going to go towards the restoration of the park, of course, is really important to me. But I know that there's a larger community that wants to hear, I'll say, more details about what the community is going to get. And it may not, I'll say, directly come from you, if you know what I mean. It's that they're going to be able to have their games played when they would normally be played. For instance, I'm not worried about the Turkey Bowl, but I'm talking about during the summer months when, actually it's October. October's a big playoff month for soccer, right? So I'm a little, I'll say, leery, because I know the larger community wants more definition about what the community's going to get. But from the Colt Park, Friends of Colt Park, you know, of course, we would like to have funding come into our park. We're, as he said, we're desperate. We have a parking lot that's an abomination. You look at the area and it's an eyesore. And we don't have an opening or an entrance from that side of the park, the east side of the park. It looks like a traffic barrier instead of a park.
It is
opening.
a traffic barrier.
It is a traffic barrier.
My sons play Babe Ruth baseball there.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, we had to chase a team from the suburbs.
Yeah.
Don't turn around and go away. It was an embarrassment. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's that big giant concrete block that looks like it blocks off the road or the track.
Yeah.
I understand completely.
Yeah. But I do understand that some people still want to hear more detail. So
Can we just, like,
Go ahead.
phase 1 and phase 3, from the 1219 notes, can we write a note that says, good idea, phase 1, phase 2, but not phase 3, like, because is that a general enough approval or a general enough, I mean, why would we, other than the synthetic turf, why would we not want this to go forward? But yeah, sure, we need more details, but can we write a resolution that's gonna do that? Gonna make everybody happy?
What is the deadline for your letter of support, and can you fill in some of the blanks between now and then? Because, you know, we kind of went through this with the stadium.
Yeah. Right.
And we don't really want to go through that again.
Well, this is, first of all, we're not gonna own the stadium. The city's gonna own it. We're gonna work with the city expeditiously to get this done. I mean, no one's handing us $12 million and saying, go for it, guys. I mean, you know, the $7 to $10 million that someone mentioned, that's our money, our investors' money. I mean, we put that at risk. If this doesn't work, $7 to $10 million of our money and our investors' money evaporates. And hopefully, the city still has a rehab stadium. I mean, we need to make this work, and we're working very hard to make that happen.
I think it's important to understand that the money for Colt Park is not our decision. We're here just trying to tell you how we can help pay part of the freight here, right? We're going to pay rent to the city to help support this brand-new facility. And meanwhile, you're going to get a big chunk of money, which is going to go to Colt Park. We don't make that decision. The city, your commission, you know, the state, whoever, that's your priority list, I believe. Am I right, Kim, saying that?
Yeah.
Right. So I can't fill in those blanks because it's your decisions. As you know, it's the community's decision, and I think that the town's or city's decision on, okay, we've got a bucket of money that we're getting appropriated for Colts Park. What's got to be fixed? He wants the drainage fixed so 40 people don't show up. I think the Park Service is represented here. They want some stuff done. So that's your decision, not ours. There's a difference here. We're not the developer. of this, we're just a tenant paying the city rent for use of the facility for a set number of days. The majority of the days, 250, 300, whatever days a year are your days.
Right.
That's got to be worked out, but.
Right, and I wanted to clarify that, and since it hadn't been made clear, that as we're discussing this, the current configuration has HSG and this USL team as a user of the stadium, with CRDA effectively putting in the money, as Kim described, to rehab the stadium and also provide some funds for the rehab of Colt Park, whether that's, you know, in alignment with the plan that's on the table, or whether other things that ultimately that ends up getting used for within Colt Park. That's the plan. The overall goal of this, and I think the opportunity that's before the city, is truly to have a rehab stadium for community use. So aside from the USL being the primary tenant, the balance of the days that they're not using it, whether that's, you know, 40 days or 60 days, however many days a year that they're going to be paying us as a paid user, the balance of those days will be able, the community will be able to use Dillon Stadium as they have been in the past, potentially continuing that process through DPW and through the reservation system, just as we have before. But it'll be a stadium that's usable, and it'll be a stadium that accommodates more use than we've been able to in the past, given the conditions that are there and because there's a turf field being put in. So I hope that answers some of the questions we're talking about from the community side. That I think the potential for the city here is very different than the baseball stadium deal that was being discussed years ago. This is really a community benefit project with the goal of allowing more community users to be there through the help of the state and HSG. So.
Yeah, and I think from PrAC's perspective, this is the important piece that I think is on the table. I think from the perspective of the voice of the community, we want to stay connected with the process so that we hear how things are progressing.
Yep.
We certainly, I agree with my fellow commissioner, we support the idea, but we want to be involved in hearing everything else. I also think, I would like to have Tom, one of the pieces that's extremely important for any improvement as it relates to our park or amenities close to our park is how it affects, you know, the people that we work with, the commission that works with the city employees, and our superintendent of parks, I think, is part of that process. That again, I think needs to be at the table to hear how that's progressing. But Tom, can I have you speak for a minute and then we'll move on to the next?
Certainly. The department is very excited about the conversation that's taking place now and the prospects and opportunities that a public-private partnership presents here. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do, but we're underway. We're looking at the financial possibilities and other arrangements that would be incorporated into an agreement, and we're really focused on this. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned directly is that we're under order by the federal government to make improvements there,
Right.
Or abandon it, right? And I don't think that's, abandonment's an option, considering the potential for the resource and how important it is for the community. So we're lending our full support to grind the numbers, and we have some experience in that, and that work is underway. And this is not the final conversation about this project before PrAC or any other part of the community. And I'm personally looking forward to participating in that conversation so that we can learn more about what the community expects from us, and so that we can deliver.
Good, thank you. So, and again, I think the point that we want to make, PrAC wants to make, is that we definitely want to be at the table. We would like to hear, and you can kind of get the sense of the voice of the community. So whether it's as things move forward in your meetings or you coming to these meetings to keep the community informed. So again, thank you for your presentation tonight. Please keep us informed as the process moves forward.
There's a question behind you. Yep.
Mr. Baptiste, thank you for your clarification. We know this is the upgrade. We've already been through this. This costs between about $1.2 million. So everybody wants soccer back in the stadium. Everybody wants Dillon reused. We know what the cost is. I think the problem for many of us in the community is we had no idea you weren't paying money. So the other group has offered 1.5 million. The other, Hartford FC has committed 650,000. None of us knew going into the proposal phase that CRDA was going to take over management of the stadium, nor none of us knew that CRDA was going to use, well, from what I read of the documents, 6.7 million of bonding dollars just for the stadium alone. Now I'm hearing it's 3 million to improve all of Colt, which is fantastic. The problem you're going to run up against is this ultimately has to go through council. And by the time it gets to council, my concern is you're going to have a ton of groups in the city. I'll give you an example. Ramon Arroyo in the other park, in Pope Park, $850,000 is missing for their improvements. They wanted improvements. The stables. I'm sure the Ebony Horsewomen, they'd like a new barn. There's interest in a marina. We'd all like a marina. So the problem is you are literally blowing the huge chunk of neighborhood development dollars, or not you, I'm sorry. Right. The proposal requires you to blow $7 million of neighborhood development bonding dollars. So going forward, what's going to happen is Asylum Hill's going to hear about this, North End's going to hear about this, Parkville's going to hear about this, and they're going to say, hey, wait a minute here. All that money is going towards one park, one project.
Dillon Stadium belongs to Coles Park, so.
I'm sorry?
Dillon Stadium belongs to Coles Park.
I understand, sir. So I'm just saying, many of us are just kind of surprised here that there isn't some kind of investment privately. You're investing in your own team. That's your personal business. So going forward, I would love to hear from CRDA and from Development Services, have you discussed this with every other group in the area? Is every other neighborhood on board with you taking all of this available bond money and just blowing it in one neighborhood? That, I think, is the problem globally for Hartford. And that's going to be the case to be made. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. David, you got a quick question? Make it quick.
Just that I'd like to know what the cost is to the city. There has to be some if the city is going to retain the design of the building that we are then going to own. There has to be a city cost for that. We need to know that before I would vote on any letter of support. Thank you.
The design cost is not going to be a burden of the city.
Right.
Again.
It's bonded dollars.
But
Please
maintenance
understand
would be
that.
ongoing that the city would take on, and to the same point, we
We're
gotta make
still
sure
in-
we're gonna be able to take a barn to the park.
Right, we're still in discussions about all of that, about who's gonna maintain it, and I assure you that we, with DPW, are working very hard at crunching those numbers, and we're not gonna come forward with a proposal that is something that the city can't bear, and that we are going to be transparent. And I think this administration has had a focus on doing the math, and we are doing the math. And when that's available, we'll be more than happy to share those numbers with you, whatever the partnership ends up looking like, so. But it's the top of our minds.
Okay, again, thank you. Any other further questions, we can certainly funnel them to your group, but thank you very much. Keep us informed. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can leave. Appreciate your time and the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next agenda item, Park Trust Fund update.